Hi everyone, it's Cheryl Cohen here. I'm the president of Arthritis Consumer Experts. I'm a person who's living with rheumatoid arthritis for quite some time. I consider myself a seasoned veteran of that effort. Super happy to have Dr. Catherine Backman with us here today to talk about routine, balance, and well-being. And let me tell you, Dr. Backman is super qualified to talk to us about these things. Dr. Backman is professor in the Department of Occupational Science and Occupational Therapy at the University of British Columbia, and she's a senior scientist at Arthritis Research Canada. She studies in her research work the impact of arthritis on participation in social roles like parenting and employment, and how people balance the occupations of everyday activities they need and want to do. Dr. Backman, thank you so much for taking time to visit with us today.
It's my pleasure, Cheryl. Looking forward to our chat.
So, okay, big question. Let's start with the big question right off the top. What is, and I'm going to put in kind of parents' life balance look like today in the middle of a pandemic? Without being Debbie Downer here, we are in a pandemic, and this is not just a question for arthritis community, Dr. Backman, but for public, really.
You're right, Cheryl. This is pretty unprecedented times, and we're probably even getting tired of hearing people saying this is unprecedented. But we're experiencing occupational disruption on a huge scale and worldwide. So in some way, shape, or form, it's affecting everyone. Some people are deprived of their normal occupations and routine, and other people are having to go 24/7 because they're engaged in activities that are so important to helping us get a handle on the pandemic. So for anyone, this is not life as normal. This is something different that we're all experiencing.
Is it the case, Dr. Backman, that those of us that are home, I mean, we always like to say in our educational programs that people with arthritis or any kind of chronic disease, they're snowflakes. They're really individuals. And so how in the work that you do and advising people who are going through this, this pandemic at home, from an occupational therapist, let's talk in a very practical way.
Sure.
How do you give advice to people that's generalized for the reasons, you know, we all know why, because that's where research, it's all about generalizing something and sending it out to the public. How do we take that pearl and implement it from an OT, using shorthand for occupational therapists? How do we do that in your mind?
Okay, so you're right that people are snowflakes in terms of being individuals, but people living with arthritis are far more resilient than a snowflake. So people with arthritis are experts in occupational disruption. They're looking at a long-term disease that's not going to go away. It's filled with uncertainty and ups and downs. So right now they have tons of expertise to offer the world in terms of how you deal with uncertainty and manage some of the ups and downs of daily life. So when we want to share information that recognizes that we're all individuals, we kind of look for the fundamental principles or the underlying principles of how we make choices and decisions. So when it comes to balancing all the different things we need and want to do in our daily lives, some of the key principles are planning, pacing, and pausing. So if we think about planning, you need to decide, what is it I need to do? What is it I want to do? So we all have some obligatory things. So if your kids are now at home and you're faced with homeschooling or at least entertainment within the home, then there's some things that you need to do. And if on top of that, you're also trying to manage some of your own work or some of your own personal self-care, then you need to have a plan about how you're going to do this. And kids are writing some great plans. So lots of examples on social media where moms are pretty proud of the plan that their kids put together. And so I loved one that a 7-year-old child put forward. So she had everything down to the minute, sketched out on her plan, and the spelling was especially the creative part. But she even went so far as to have 2 minutes of meditation from 2 to 2:02 p.m. So she had that little pause in there for herself and was pacing herself. Another colleague shared with me her kids' schedule, and they had color-coded their mom and dad and had written an arrow in their schedule when mom was working and dad was working, so they knew which parent to go to if they needed some help. So kids of any age can help with kind of that planning. What is it that we're going to do today? And so you want to look at a day, but also look at a week, because you don't want to cram everything into a day, and maybe plan your week. Right now, every day could feel like a weekend in a way, but you want to kind of have your work days and your weekend days. You want to have your work time and your play time. So you want to think about what needs and wants to be done, and have a bit of plan. What's important to you, what's congruent with your values, or what you find satisfying or enjoyable. And when you have a plan, it makes it a little bit easier to pace yourself, because you have a dedicated time and space for work, or you decide that we're gonna, our physical activity is gonna be dancing like nobody's looking. So you put the music on and dance away, so you have your exercise. You maybe figure out ways to have a little bit of alone time. And that's where we come to the pause, where you need some time to pause, take a break. I listened to your chat with Susan last week, and just pause and take a deep breath, really important. One of the pauses that I take, I don't know if you saw Steve Martin, the comedian who also plays the banjo, recorded and posted online a 78-second banjo tune. He didn't say a word. He just recorded himself in the woods playing the banjo. And so I do that. It's like my 7-year-old kid telling me 2 minutes of meditation. So I just sort of visualize myself in those woods with Steve Martin playing the banjo, and do some deep breathing there. So yeah, so if you take these principles, so everybody can plan and pace and pause, but they develop it for their own family, their own lifestyle, their own home, based on what they need and want to do.
So the 3 Ps.
Yep. So
the
3 Ps in this case. I guess the fourth one's pandemic. So the 3 Ps to survive the pandemic, maybe. But it applies to managing arthritis or any chronic illness, but it also pertains to how our lives have been disrupted in the face of this pandemic, but also just our well-being going forward. A lot of us are going to learn quite a bit about ourselves and what's important to ourselves, how to enjoy life, and take away some lessons.
I've been using the phrase silver linings a lot, right, and trying to find the silver lining in an otherwise, obviously, when you think about people getting ill and actually dying, it can be very depressing, and kind of heightens your sense of isolation and loneliness. And you've given us some really practical strategies for dealing with some of that from a planning perspective, like it's about busy hands and busy minds, keep you kind of elevated, I think. As we sort of close our conversation, Dr. Backman, I wanted to ask you a practical question from someone who's at home and working perspective about productivity. What's reasonable? I find myself, I'm up at 6 o'clock. I hate the mornings, frankly, but I've told myself, I gotta be doing more because I'm not at work. I'm actually finding I'm working longer hours at home. and taking fewer breaks. So I've taken careful notes of your comments about finding the start and stop and the pause. But what about productivity?
Yeah, so lots of people have been claiming that they're going to be extra productive because they're now holed up in their homes, working from home, no interruptions, and finding out that there are lots of interruptions, lots of distractions that take you away. I think it's great to still get up at your regular time and go through your morning routine. You don't have to rush off to a commute or something like that. But I think you need to cut yourself a little bit of slack on the productivity piece, because there's a lot going on in the world. You set some goals and track them, but give yourself be kind to yourself, give yourself a bit of a break, and adjust those productivity goals based on things that are going on around you. So occupational therapists like to talk a lot about supporting people's occupations in terms of looking at some of the personal skill set. So we look at what the person brings to it. What's the occupation that they're trying to achieve, that they want to do? And what's the effect of the environment on all of this? So a lot of times when we're working with people with arthritis, they're learning about their changed personal characteristics and skill set, and they're developing new skills, and we sometimes adapt the environment to support the occupations that they want to do. What we're seeing right now is this huge disruption in the environment that we're all working in. So we need to cut ourselves a little bit of slack and recognize that it's not quite life as normal. So adjust those goals and expectations, exchange resources and ideas, and ask for help if you need help to get some of these things done. There's probably, everybody needs a sense of purpose, lots of people willing to help. And so there's probably different things that can be exchanged with your friends, neighbors, family members, so that we all get through this together.
That's such great advice. And I'm going to look myself in the mirror tonight before I go to bed and tell myself to cut some slack for that lady. I want to thank you so much, Dr. Backman. In just a short period of time, you've given such great practical, not only advice and tips, but insights into the situation our community faces today, and some of the special things that we have going for us, actually, in terms of our ability to cope already. And hopefully those people, family members or friends of people living with arthritis who've tuned in, they're going to learn something too about how to better plan at home, and how to assign, play time with work time. I love the idea about the arrows back and forth. And I think Dr. Bartlett, she gave me all of us a practical piece of advice, saying if you're worried about COVID, give it a time. Give yourself that time in the day to worry. 20 minutes. Do it at 11 o'clock. That's what I'm doing at 11 o'clock now every morning. So that's part of my plan. Anyway, I want to thank you so much. We have resources that'll follow to our viewers following the video piece. So keep an eye out for those. Some terrific resources that Dr. Backman has provided you. We encourage you to give us comments, questions on the Facebook page. You can also email us at feedback@jointhealth.org. Dr. Backman, thank you again so much for joining us for Arthritis at Home.
Thanks very much. Stay well, Cheryl. I think it's a great program, Arthritis at Home, for the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, and be safe.